and we have a full year ahead of 340B news programs, and the year already started with some major news, and it's already a roller coaster as it relates to the news of further manufacturer restrictions. Just in the recent weeks, there have been 2 to 3 additional manufacturers that are enforcing restrictions on 340B covered entities, which is very unfortunate. There was a ruling that came out recently from a district court that sided with the manufacturers and was not favorable to covered entities in allowing the restrictions of 340B pricing availability to continue. And it's very unfortunate and disheartening to say the least. So we're certainly hopeful that there's new changes, but it's an ever-changing market. Those of you that have been in 340B for a while, I think would agree with the statement that outside of the omnibus regulations that were proposed a few years ago, this is probably one of the most turbulent times of being in 340B, where there's real changes that covered entities have to keep up with and adapt to. So the agenda for today starts with number one, how to set program goals or setting your program goals for 2023. The importance of staying connected and learning as the year goes on because of this roller coaster season that we're in. Number three, I want to talk about, it's the beginning of the year, I want to talk about your HRSA database and how important it is to keep that updated. Number four, your 340B accounts and how important it is to keep up with those. And number five, we're going to end it with updating your pharmacy services agreement. There have been a lot of movement in the industry as it relates to some of the big chains proposing some changes to those pharmacy service agreements. So we want to make sure that you are all informed and are aware and taking advantage of those changes where they may be positive to your covered entity. So let's start with setting program goals. And this is very important for the reason that if you are on this call and you are a 340B professional, you manage a 340B program, you're an analyst as part of a 340B program, you all would agree that it's very easy to get deep in the weeds, to look into or analyze contract pricing on your drug catalog, to work with credit and rebill situations or your drug utilization, with your TPA and trying to get your IT to help you with your data interfaces, right? All those things that are very in the weeds and in the data. And those things are good. All those things are important. All those things are critical. However, sometimes it's important to take a step back and look from a high level as to what the overall goals you're hoping to accomplish for your success in your 340B program. So that's what I want to challenge you, is just to take a step back out of the weeds and look at what is upcoming this year in your 340B program. What are the big changes that your specific health system is facing, or your health center is facing, or your Ryan White program is facing this year? And think about what does success looks like, right? So, for example, you might be facing a major integration this year. Maybe your team, your committee, your entity is planning a third-party administration change, right? And setting that goal, what does success look like in choosing a new third-party administrator, for example? Perhaps you're faced with, I feel like we have been in the last, probably decade, just an overall of, it feels like almost every time someone's changing EMR, someone's on the Epic, and a lot of that is going on. That's still continuing. That has a major impact on your 340B program. If you're going through an EMR change and your health system is going through an EMR change, changing your third-party administrator is probably not something you can do that year, depending on the size of your system, of course. But from experience, I've seen that usually when you're going through an EMR change, that's the priority. It could impact other areas of your program. You might have to create some additional workflows to deal with your current third-party administrator while that's happening. So those are the types of things that you want to note and take into account. Maybe your health system's going through a wholesaler change. You're changing from one of the big three to another, and that's going to impact your 340B program significantly. And you want to define what does success look like in that. Maybe you're going through a corporate integration. Your health system, your clinic got acquired by another health system, another health center, and you have to figure out how is 340B impacted by that integration, that acquisition. Um, Maybe you're a pharmacy director and you are going through a pharmacy software change, right? And now you have to go out and shop for pharmacy software, make sure that it meets your needs and what that looks like. So major integrations, I will have that as a section of you want to set those goals. What are those things? These are some ideas, but defining what success looks like this year as you go through those changes. Another one is your compliance, right? So 340B and the word compliance go hand in hand. So you wanna have your HRSA audit preparedness. So it's a good time, the beginning of the year. I'm going to talk about this in a further slide. But it's a good time to make sure that you go through that checklist that maybe you have of what are the things that I should be prepared for in a HRSA audit. Maybe it's time to review your policies and procedures. Maybe it's time to review your contracts to make sure that you have signed agreements for every contract pharmacy listed in your HRSA database. Time to review your HRSA database and things like that. So you want to make sure that you're setting goals as to what does success look like in this area of my 340B program. I know a major one is most covered entities or some covered entities have that they do yearly external audits. You wanna plan that. You wanna make sure that you're prepared for that, right? That might be your system might do that as a surprise audit, so you want to make sure that you're prepared for that. You want to set goals as to it relates to growth. So maybe you have a goal of going out and adding another chain pharmacy to your program. Maybe you want to go out and add some specialty pharmacies to your program that you don't currently have, or the local independent that is doing hundreds of thousands of dollars in 340B prescription volume. You want to prepare for those things, and because there could be situations where you have a contract agreement that's preventing you from expanding, or you don't want to expand with that particular TPA. So these are all things you want to be thinking about now, so that as the year goes by, you are able to adapt and make the proper changes to set you on the road to success. And the big one, who isn't talking about manufacturer restrictions these days, right? It seems like that's the topic on every single newsletter, every single webinar, every conference that you go to. There are multiple discussions on manufacturer restrictions. So you want to plan, what is your covered entity going to do? There's still covered entities that are refusing to submit the 340B SP, and if that's what you're doing, great. You want to prepare for that and make sure that your team is aware of what that impact is. One of the recommendations I have is develop a tracker. Maybe you want to, if you have multiple TPAs, that could take you a while to develop a tracker, see what are you doing at every single TPA with every manufacturer if you're impacted by all of those. So these are some ideas or some areas that you want to develop sort of a high level goal of what does success look like for us in 2023, and are we facing any of these major changes that could impact us growing our 340B program, or could impact a major system integration change. All right, so number two, the next thing that I want to discuss to set you up for success this year is stay connected and stay learning. It is so important to, again, it is so easy to say, I have so many things to do. I have to follow up with my contract pharmacies. I have to follow up my TPA, but it is so important to know that there is a lot going on. And as 340B professionals, we should be intentional about learning, staying up to date as to what's going on in the market, in the industry, connecting with others, networking with others, signing up for newsletters that are out there, joining this webinar. Again, thank you so much for joining us. Well, joining webinars like this one, where you're learning information. Maybe you're new to 340B, and sometimes as I'm putting these together, I feel like if someone has been in the program, this is going to seem repetitive. Should I say this? Should I not? But I get a lot of feedback of people that are new to 340B. You just got your role, you're trying to figure things out. So joining webinars like this one is a great first step. Signing up for newsletters. There are many out there and growing. You want to be in touch with your advocacy group. You want to be going to conferences to make sure that you're plugged in and connected. Make sure that you're informing your leadership of the roller coaster that is 340B, and make sure that there are resources assigned for you to educate yourself, to attend conferences, to be able to sign up for newsletters, join these webinars. That's a critical part of the role of a 340B professional. It's just to continue to learn and stay connected as to what's going on in the industry. Number 3 is keeping your HRSA database updated. This is something that's often overlooked, right? Because there's so many bigger things going on. So you have the manufacturer restrictions going on, as I mentioned multiple times, but it's easy to forget that, hey, we want to do the basics. So as you start your year, I encourage you, this is one of the most important things that you can do, especially to be prepared for a HRSA audit, is to go through your HRSA database. Be familiar with your HRSA database. Go in there, make sure that there's no new changes. If your system has changed name or changed ownership, that could impact how you're listed on your HRSA database. Your Medicaid designation is important to look at. I know in Pennsylvania, for example, the state, and Pennsylvania is where I am, but the state decided to put out a new bulletin where they were essentially changing the way that reporting was done on and basically excluding Medicaid managed care altogether, which was something that historically was something that was up in the air, not clearly defined. Covered entities that found out about this and Pharmacy Procedures Bulletin immediately shared their feedback with the state, and thankfully they reverted to the old policy. But these are things that, one, staying connected and knowing what's going on will help you be aware, be part of that advocacy for your covered entity. But your Medicaid designation might need to be updated. Your contact information might need to be updated. Your authorizing official or your primary contact might have changed. So that's something that you want to look at. You want to look at your registered contract pharmacy. This is something, again, that's often overlooked. There are times where we're working with a covered entity and they have contract pharmacies that shouldn't be registered, or contract pharmacies that were registered and just, the implementation decided not to go live, and those need to be terminated. So you want to review not only that you have the right number of the right contract pharmacies registered, but that you have the supporting documentation assigned, fully executed pharmacy service agreement, et cetera, in place to support that. So again, this is simple, easy to do, easy to track. Please make sure you're doing this to make sure that you're accounting for any major changes that might exist in your program. All right, next is reviewing your 340B account. Again, the goal of this is, hey, it's 2023, the beginning of the year. Let's do some housekeeping. Let's make sure we are accounting for everything that's part of our program. And this is another area that's often, I will say, overlooked, is we go through the process of terminating. Maybe you're closing a location, you're closing a child site, maybe you're terminating a contract pharmacy, etc. And sometimes this step is missed, is to close a 340B account. You want to do that, one, for compliance purposes. You don't want a 340B account open that you could order off of by mistake. You want to also have a good inventory that every 340B account that's open in your system and under your 340B HRSA ID, and that is being utilized for an intent and purpose that you deemed it, to be utilized as. I remember being part of a covered entity where um, the family planning department had opened a 340B account without the 340B team knowing. And it was an account rep came in, wanted to sell certain medications, and an account was opened without us knowing. It ended up being something we needed to review from a compliance perspective. But there are things like that, especially if you work on a really large system. There are instances where this can happen. There's times where your 340B account might have credits that you can take and transfer. You might have amount unpaid 340B accounts. So you just want to clean this up. You just want to make sure that you're accounting for all of your 340B accounts are all up to date, they're all being utilized. And if any are not or need to be closed, that you're going through the proper steps to do. All right, then last but not least, and there has been a lot of change. I know that some of it has been controversial, but there has been a lot of change as it relates to some of the amendments with some of the big chain pharmacies in the market. So, make sure that you're keeping up with all of those amendment changes. But we have seen, for example, some activities from Kroger's, from Optum changes some dispensing fees, Walmart now allowing generics into the 340B program for covered entities, which was previously for the history of the program, a brand only program as far back as I can remember. Generics are now being allowed for those entities that are working with a Walmart contract pharmacy. That can be a very big deal for your program. I know that some of the dispensing fees increase a little bit, but adding the generics to the program could be a big deal. We have seen that to be very positive for a lot of our covered entities. Where the 340B savings and the 340B revenue is more important than ever in the healthcare space, given all of the staffing shortages, some of the post-pandemic healthcare changes that are happening right now, and healthcare organizations are facing a very tough reality. 340B remains to be a really important part of a healthcare organization success. So look into that. That might be an opportunity for you to increase savings pretty easily. Is just to have your TPA, have you include those generics into your Walmart agreement. It was Kroger, I think, did the same thing not too long ago. So again, you have to understand the impact. This may or may not be beneficial to your CE, but I want to share that this information of things that we're dealing with, we're facing, we're seeing every day in the 340B space, and hopefully this is of value to you. But again, there's a lot of changes, and you're in sort of the contract pharmacy service agreement space with amendments and new dispensing fee changes and generics being allowed in some programs. So we want you to be aware of that. Make sure you're working with your TPA, and your legal team to coordinate that and getting that into production with your for your covered entity. So, and I want to end it with this. I think all of you that are 340B professionals, are part of the 340B team, pharmacy team, are so critical to the success of healthcare organizations. I think all of you know the staffing shortages that healthcare organizations are dealing with. The reduction in reimbursement in a post-COVID world in healthcare. All I'm hearing is that it looks pretty bad for healthcare and hospitals in general. And 340B continues to be an amazing lifeline and a way for hospitals, grantees, FQHCs, et cetera, to stay open, to provide more healthcare services to their patients. In some cases, we're seeing covered entities with amazing cash card programs where they're providing the 340B discounts to their patients. And those are all great things and great reasons why the 340B program is so important. So I hope that your organization realizes how important you all are to the success of the overall organization. 340B is not just a a little program on the side, but a key part of the success of a healthcare organization that is 340B eligible. With that being said, I want to allow some time for a Q&A. And so you're welcome to ask questions. I do want to announce that we have a webinar coming on Thursday, March the 9th from 11:30 to 12. Again, these are intended, at least our style is to be quick, is to give you great information, and to I think we're going to call them the brunch sessions. I kind of like that. I was joking with Hillary. I feel like doing this is a YouTube and a YouTube video, and we're doing the brunch session. So I hope that this was valuable. The next topic will be on manufacturer exclusions, and what I'm hoping to discuss is how your TPA can help reduce financial impact of the manufacturer exclusion. So there's a lot of ways that your TPA plays a critical role in helping you reduce the financial impact. This manufacturer exclusion and reporting to 340B ESP is very, very complicated. There's a lot of moving parts. So I'm going to share some thoughts on that. Now, I want to open up to questions.